of the like key things to look at is our relationship with the dead, which I'll get into in just a moment. So, in a culture of abstraction and individualization, the underworld is associated with the shadow, and it's seen as a really almost like solely internalized set of traumas and subconscious forces and ancestral influences. And where do these live? They live primarily in the body and psyche of the individual. And this is a familiar vision. And again, I'm not saying that there's not value to this vision. There is value to this vision. It's helped a lot of people. Shadow work helps a lot of people going into these types of, this kind of like, oh, I really need to go deep inside and see what's going on down there. Like, that's valuable. And it's also worth contrasting because there are relational tools that are available to us if we view the underworld a little bit more ecologically that aren't available to us necessarily if we only view it individually. So the traditional underworld is a place of living spirits, living ancestors, co-present in a living geography. It's not just something from the distant past that lodged itself into our genetic makeup sometime and, is like kind of festering away in there, causing all kinds of trouble. It's a living relational navigation of forces that are worked with relationally. So there's a big difference in seeing, say, an ancestral trauma as some painful, horrible thing that happened ages ago with, beings that are no longer with us. And I'm kind of left here to process the burden, as opposed to, no, this ancestor is present and they're here and they still need to eat. And I still need to find a way to feed them. And there's a very big difference when we understand that everything in an animist sense is ever present relationally and able to be interacted with relationally, and not simply, a relic that I'm carrying, right? And I just want to invite people to feel into that difference just a little bit. And it starts with understanding that ancestors aren't dead, right? I'm laughing because this is so fundamental and so straightforward. And even the word dead, ancestral spirits, right? We say the word dead to imply something that's no longer alive and therefore no longer present and no longer with us. And if it is affecting us, if those, people or, that lived long ago are affecting us, it's in the kind of like coding that they passed down to us. And therefore, because it lives within us, it's our job to kind of work it out and extract it. Well, that's not what you could call a traditional animist vision. A traditional animist vision is the ancestors aren't dead. They are co-populating, co-inhabiting the same geographies that we are. They are alive. They're here. They're with us right now. They need to eat. They need to be recognized. They need their names said aloud. We're in relation with them. And the good news is because we're in relation with them and they're alive and ever present, we can negotiate with them. And, it's not this such a burdensome task of like, how am I ever going to rid myself of this thing that lives within me that I've inherited from these people who aren't even around anymore? No, they're here. They're alive. They're awake. They're in relation with us. And we can very simply and very easily open up the doors of that relationship because it's a living relationship. Yeah. So in many cultures, there isn't a strict dichotomy between alive and dead. Yeah. The spirit of a person, again, very foundational in most world traditions. The spirit of a person continues to exist after their body is rotted into the forest floor and they're still alive and they're in a different shape. They're in a different form. The dead are alive. Spirits are alive. The past is alive. It's a living continuum. And so ancestral influences are not simply lodged in the isolated body as ancestral trauma. They are alive as everything is alive. And they're imminently negotiable, accessible, and relatable. Yeah. Um, and when this network of relationality becomes clear, ancestors don't only leave a burden for us, they help us carry burdens too. There's this sense again in the kind of funnel vision of the modern Western individualist, that like everything begins and ends with me, that I am responsible for all of the burdens that came before. No, the ancestors are there to perform healings. They're there to help with things in our lives. They're there to help with, like, business negotiate. They're there to help with everything.